There's an old saying that goes, winners never quit and quitters never win. Personally, I do not agree with that saying. It is too simple. In my reality, a winner also knows when to quit. Sometimes in life, it is best to cut your losses. It is best to admit you have come to a dead end, or to admit you have been barking up the wrong tree. In my opinion, a quitter is someone who quits simply because things have gotten tough. Today I'm reading my highlights of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dads Before You Quit Your Job, 10 real-life lessons every entrepreneur should know about building $1 million business. The moment I quit my job, I knew the real reason why many employees do not become entrepreneurs. It is fear of not having any money, no guaranteed income, no steady paycheck. Very few people can operate for long periods of time without money. Entrepreneurs are different, and one of those differences is the ability to operate sanely and intelligently without money. I began to realize how expensive it had been to hire me as an employee. I realized that employees cost far more than the number of dollars reflected in their paychecks. So another difference between employees and entrepreneurs is that entrepreneurs need to know how to spend money, even if they have no money. People are trainable. They can be trained to be either employees or entrepreneurs. The reason there are more employees than entrepreneurs is simply because our schools train young people to become employees. This is why so many parents say to their child, "Go to school so you can get a good job." I have yet to hear any parent say, "Go to school so you can become an entrepreneur." It was during the industrial age that the demand for employees grew. In response, the government took over the task of mass education and adopted the Prussian system, upon which most Western school systems in the world are modeled. When you research the philosophy behind Prussian education, you will find that the stated purpose was to produce soldiers and employees, people who would follow orders and do as they were told. The Prussian system of education is a great system for mass-producing employees. It is a matter of training. Security and freedom are not the same. In fact, they are opposites. The more security you seek, the less freedom you have. The people with the most security are in jail. That is why it is called maximum security. He went on to say, if you want freedom, you need to let go of security. Employees desire security. Entrepreneurs seek freedom. While many people dream of quitting their job and starting their own business, only a few actually do it. Why? Because the transition from employee to entrepreneur is more than changing jobs. It is a true metamorphosis. Rather than tell you how I brilliantly sailed over the tallest peaks and made millions, I thought you might learn more from how I dug many deep holes, fell into them, and then had to dig my way out. Rather than tell you about all my successes, I believe you will learn more from my failures. One of the better definitions of an entrepreneur is from Howard H. Stevenson, a professor at Harvard University. He says, entrepreneurship is an approach to management that we define as follows: the pursuit of opportunity without regard to resources currently controlled. Entrepreneurs are always looking for the opportunity without much regard to whether they have resources. Employee-type persons focus on what resources they have or do not have, which is why so many people say, "How can I start my business? I don't have the money." An entrepreneur would say, "Tie up the deal and then we'll find the money." An entrepreneur will grow the organization horizontally, which means outsourcing rather than bringing the work in-house. An employee wants to grow the organization vertically, which means hiring more employees. Formal organizational charts are very important to employees climbing the corporate ladder. The entrepreneur doesn't want to climb the corporate ladder. He or she wants to own the corporate ladder. An entrepreneur is not driven by a paycheck, but by results of the team. Many entrepreneurs will do their work even though there is no money. Rich Dad said, "Many employees are passionate about their work only as long as there is a paycheck." Another reason many people are not as successful as they would like to be is fear. Often the fear of making mistakes or the fear of failing. There's another reason, also a fear, but it appears a little differently. These people disguise their fears as being perfectionists. They are waiting for all the stars to line up before starting their business. There are 3 parts to putting a business deal together. 1. Finding the right people. 2. Finding the right opportunity. 3. Finding the money. An entrepreneur does not care if 2 out of 3 lights are red. In fact, an entrepreneur does not care if all 3 lights are red. Red lights do not prevent an entrepreneur from being an entrepreneur. Many people fail to get to market because they are constantly perfecting their product. Like the person who is waiting for all the lights to be green, some entrepreneurs never get to market because they are looking for or working on perfecting their product or writing the perfect business plan. My rich dad often said, "Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly." One of the marks of a successful entrepreneur is being able to assess the expectations of the marketplace and know when to stop developing and start marketing. If the product is put on the market a little prematurely, then the entrepreneur can simply improve it and take steps to maintain goodwill in the marketplace. On the other hand, delay in introducing a product can mean opportunities irretrievably lost, a window of opportunity missed. To be successful as employees, people need to know the right answers. If they do not know the right answers, they may be fired or not promoted. Entrepreneurs do not need to know all the answers. All they need to know is who to call. That is what advisors are all about. Employees are often trained to be specialists. Simply said, a specialist is someone who knows a lot about a little. His or her cup must be full. Entrepreneurs need to be generalists. Simply said, a generalist is someone who knows a little about a lot. His or her cup is empty. Once I crossed the line from employee to entrepreneur, my real education began. I was soon reading every book on business I could get my hands on, reading financial newspapers and attending seminars. I knew I did not know all the answers. I knew I had to learn a lot and learn it fast. Today, nothing has changed. I know that my education as an entrepreneur will never have a graduation day. Before quitting their jobs, people need to decide if they want to make the transition from employee to entrepreneur. The transition or metamorphosis requires a change to some of the following traits. A mindset of freedom instead of security. The ability to operate without money. The ability to operate without security. A focus on opportunity rather than resources. Different management styles to manage different people. The ability to manage people and resources they do not control. A focus on team and value rather than pay or promotion. An active learner, no graduation day. Generalized education rather than specialized. The courage to be responsible for the entire business. You may recall that my first official day as an entrepreneur was not a good day. But if you stick with the learning process, your world will change, just as your world changed when you finally learned to walk or ride a bike. The same is true with entrepreneurship. You don't have to be afraid of fear. You don't have to be a prisoner of fear. Fear will not define your world as it does most people's world. Instead of fearing fear, you will learn to confront fear and use it to your advantage. Instead of quitting because your business is out of money, because you're afraid of not being able to pay your bills, being a true entrepreneur will give you the courage to go forward, to think clearly, to study, to read, to talk to new people, to come up with new ideas and new actions. The desire for freedom can give you the courage to operate for years without needing a secure job or a steady paycheck. That is the kind of freedom I'm talking about. It is the freedom from the fear of fear. I chose to be an entrepreneur to be free. For me, freedom is more important than life itself. Rich Dad's Entrepreneurial Lesson number 1. A successful business is created before there is a business. What is the difference between an employee and an entrepreneur? Statistics show that 90% of all new businesses fail within the first 5 years. Statistics also show that 90% of the 10% that survive the first 5 years fail before their 10th anniversary. In other words, approximately 99% of all startup businesses fail within 10 years. Many entrepreneurs fail to build a business. Instead, they work hard building a job that they own. They become self-employed rather than business owners. A poorly conceived business startup may be able to survive as long as the entrepreneur works hard and holds the business together with sheer determination. In other words, hard work can cover up a poorly designed business and keep it from failing. One of the primary reasons for the high failure rate of small businesses is sheer exhaustion. It's tough to make money and keep going when so much of your time is tied up in activities that do not make you any money or that cost you money without offsetting income. If you are thinking about starting your own business, before you quit your job, you might want to talk to some entrepreneurs about how much time they spend on non-income producing activities to run their business and how they handle this challenge. The job of an entrepreneur is to design a business that can grow, employ many people, add value to its customers, be a responsible corporate citizen, bring prosperity to all those who work on the business, be charitable, and eventually no longer need the entrepreneur. Losers quit when they fail. Winners fail until they succeed. The Cashflow Quadrant explains that there are 4 different types of people who make up the world of business. They are often different people technically, emotionally, and mentally. E stands for employee. S stands for self-employed or small business owner. B stands for big business owner. I stands for investor. Employees will always say the same words whether they are the president of the company or the janitor. An employee always says, "I'm looking for a safe, secure job with benefits." The operative words are safe and secure. A person in the S quadrant may say, "If you want it done right, do it yourself." In many cases, this person's challenge is learning to trust other people to do a better job than he or she can. This lack of trust often keeps them small, since it's hard to grow a business without eventually trusting other people. B quadrant people are always looking for good people and good business systems. They do not necessarily want to do the work themselves. They want to build a business to do the work. A true B quadrant entrepreneur can grow his or her business all over the world. An S quadrant entrepreneur is often restricted to a small area, an area he or she can personally control. I quadrant people, investors, are looking for smart S's or B's to take care of their money and grow it. Many entrepreneurs are not business owners but self-employed entrepreneurs who own a job, not a business. He said, "You are probably self-employed if your name is the name of the business, if your income stops if you stop working, if clients come to see you, or your employees call you if there is a problem. You may also be self-employed if you are the smartest, most talented, or the best educated person in your business." He had nothing against self-employed entrepreneurs. He simply wanted us to know the difference between entrepreneurs who own businesses and those who own jobs. Many self-employed businesses have a tough time growing into a big business. In other words, they have a real challenge going from the S quadrant to the B quadrant. Why? Again, the answer is that the business was poorly designed before there was a business. It was doomed before it even started. Being creative means you are often a pioneer. It is easy to copy a successful and proven product. It is also less risky. If you learn to innovate, create, or invent your way to success, you are an entrepreneur creating new value rather than an entrepreneur who wins by copying. Anyone can be an entrepreneur. Your neighborhood babysitter is an entrepreneur. So was Henry Ford, founder of the Ford Motor Company. Anyone with a little initiative can be an entrepreneur. So don't think entrepreneurs are special or better than other people. Your job is to decide which entrepreneur you most want to be like, the babysitter or Henry Ford. They both provide a valuable product or service. Both are important to their customers. Yet they operate in very different spectrums, a different bandwidth of entrepreneurship. It's like the difference between sandlot football, high school football, college football, and professional football. We can all be entrepreneurs. Being an entrepreneur is not that big a deal. A better question in designing a business is, at what level of play do you want to play the game? Most new entrepreneurs get excited about a new product or opportunity they think will make them rich. Unfortunately, many of them focus on the product or opportunity rather than invest the time in designing the business around the product or opportunity. Before quitting your job, it might be a good idea to study the lives of entrepreneurs and the different types of businesses they created. You might also want to find a mentor who has been an entrepreneur. I recommend keeping your daytime job while you start a part-time business, not for the money, but for the experience. That means even if your part-time business does not make any money, you are gaining something far more important than money, real-life experience. Not only will you learn about business, you will learn a lot about yourself. Rich Dad's Entrepreneurial Lesson number 2. How to turn bad luck into good luck. Dumb and dumber get rich and richer. Failing in business early in life was a defining experience. It was instrumental in developing a success strategy for my future. At the age of 9, I started to realize that making mistakes was the best way for me to learn about business. There are 2 primary reasons why entrepreneurs fail. One is that the would-be entrepreneurs are so afraid of failing that they freeze and then do nothing. They get up and go to work, always with some excuse why they are not ready to quit their jobs and start their businesses. The usual excuses include not enough money, too risky, the time is not right, kids to feed, and many others. The second reason entrepreneurs fail is that they do not fail enough. Many small business owners and self-employed business owners succeed to a point and then stop growing. The business plateaus or begins to die. The business reaches a certain size and then fails to grow. Once again, the entrepreneur needs to risk failing before the business can begin growing. In today's rapidly changing world, the people who are not taking risks are the risk takers. People who are not taking risks are falling behind. Employees are hired to not make mistakes. An employee's job is to follow the rules, do as they are told, and do their job the right way. If employees want to do things their own way or do not follow the rules or make too many mistakes, they are fired because they are not doing the job they were hired to do. So there is a world of difference between an employee and an entrepreneur? Asked the host sarcastically. Oh, absolutely, I replied, working hard not to get caught up in her skepticism. We live in very different worlds because we are very different people. One of us lives in a world that thrives on risk. The other lives in a world that avoids risk. Different worlds, different people. It is the fear of losing money that costs people the most money. They are so afraid of losing, they lose. They settle for a steady paycheck. They may not lose much money in their life, but they lose out on the potential for great wealth. Did you like school? Asked the host. Not really, I replied. I did not do well in school because I made too many mistakes. I was a C, D, and on several occasions an F student. So in school I figured out that since I was already good at making mistakes, I might as well become an expert at making mistakes. That is why I'm an entrepreneur, not an employee. I'm not that academically smart. No one would hire me for a high-paying job. I don't like following orders, so I'd probably never be promoted. I like changing things and doing things my way, rather than doing what I'm told to do. My rich dad believed in learning from your mistakes. He did not view mistakes as bad, but simply as opportunities to learn something about business and yourself. When my poor dad made a mistake, he often pretended he did not make one, denied making one, or blamed someone else for the mistake. He did not view making mistakes as an opportunity to learn and increase one's intellectual capacity. He did his best to avoid making mistakes. "Look," said Les, my instructor, "you have to trust that there is a Grand Prix driver inside you. If you don't go fast, you'll never meet the driver inside you. I want you to push yourself, push that throttle so the driver in you comes forward and takes over the car. If I let you go slowly, the coward in you is still driving the car. There's only one way the professional driver can come out, and that is by pushing hard on the accelerator. When you go full throttle, you have to trust that the professional race car driver in you will take over." Since a new entrepreneur is creating something out of nothing, it is obvious that mistakes will be made. In order to succeed, a new entrepreneur needs to be committed to going through these steps as quickly as possible. 1. Start the business. 2. Fail and learn. 3. Find a mentor. 4. Fail and learn. 5. Take some classes. 6. Keep failing and learning. 7. Stop when successful. 8. Celebrate. 9. Count your money, the wins and the losses. 10. Repeat the process. Instead of going forward, I have seen many wannabe entrepreneurs design and redesign their plan, or they find some excuse why the time or the plan is not right. Instead of taking action and failing, they work hard at trying not to fail. They enter the world of analysis paralysis. It is impossible to become an entrepreneur without starting a business. It would be like trying to learn how to ride a bicycle without a bicycle, or wanting to learn to be a race car driver without a race car and a track. My poor dad came from the school of thought that focused on the avoidance of mistakes. That is why he was a good employee. My rich dad came from the school of thought that encouraged making mistakes. That is why he was a good entrepreneur. If you are a person who needs to always look good, sound smart, never make mistakes, and have all the right answers, then being an employee or a self-employed person might be a better path for you. As the years went on, the mistakes were bigger but not as painful, simply because I was becoming an expert at making mistakes. Instead of running through 5 or 6 stop signs, I did stop, think, learn, correct, and expand my capacity as an entrepreneur before going on. Today I can honestly say I am richer than many of my peers, many who did well in school or had higher paying jobs early in life, simply because I was willing to be dumb and dumber for years. That's part of paying the price to succeed. That day, Rich Dad taught us that as humans we have 4 basic emotions. They are joy, anger, fear, and love. He also explained that there were many other emotions, but these were the basic ones. Many of the other emotions were combinations of 2 or more of these basic emotions. For example, sadness is often a combination of anger, fear, and love, and occasionally joy. Each emotion can be used in 2 basic ways, for good or for bad. For example, I could feel joy and use the joy to go out and drink heavily, which would be using the emotion of joy for a bad purpose. I could also use the emotion of joy to send thank you notes to everyone who helped me in life. If you can turn bad luck into good luck, you will be twice as lucky in love, life, health, and money. Rich Dad's entrepreneurial lesson number 3. Know the difference between your job and your work. Why work for free? A job is something I get paid for. I do not get paid for work, such as my homework. Work is what I do to prepare me for my job. Rich Dad nodded. That's it. That's the difference between your work and your job. You get paid for a job, but you do not get paid for doing your work. When it comes to money, the more homework you do, the more money you earn on your job. People who do not do their homework make less money, regardless if they are an employee or an entrepreneur. Many employees do not understand working for free. They expect to get paid for anything they do. That is why they fail. They continue to think like employees. They want that steady paycheck. I do not know of a single great athlete who got paid for practicing their sport. Most professional athletes started young and practiced longer and harder than the average athlete. Most professional athletes practiced for years and put in many hours long before they got paid. They had to do their homework before they got their jobs as pros. There is a poem that describes people who are willing to die being right. It goes, "Here lies the body of Justin Gray. He died defending his right of way. He is right. His case is strong. But he's as dead as if he were wrong." Before quitting their jobs, entrepreneurs should do their homework. That means making sure that the BI triangle's 5 components for their new businesses are covered. 1. Product. 2. Legal. 3. Systems. 4. Communications. 5. Cash flow. If the entrepreneur is weak in covering just one of the 5 elements, the business may fail, struggle financially, or fail to grow. That is why the lesson in the first chapter is: a successful business is created before there is a business. Whenever someone says, "I have an idea for a new product," this simple checklist can be used to bring some reality to what may be required to bring the product to market. In most instances, the wannabe entrepreneurs give up on their idea because they are not willing to do their homework. They soon realize why a new product is just the tip of the iceberg, or in this case, the tip of the BI triangle. One reason why so many wannabe entrepreneurs give up is that they start to realize they are only trained for one out of the 5 levels. Highly educated professional people often have a higher rate of success because their education often prepares them for more than one element. I meet many wannabe entrepreneurs who have a great idea for a new product or new business. The problem for most of them is that they cannot sell, which means they cannot raise money. The inability to raise money may be the number one reason why most wannabe entrepreneurs give up and go back to their jobs. An entrepreneur raises money from friends and family, banks and organizations that support entrepreneurs, customers, suppliers, investors, public markets. I have read books about Edison that say his ability to sell allowed him to have a constant stream of venture capital flowing into his projects. They say he was ahead of his time in understanding and integrating the concepts of self-promotion. His ability to self-promote is one of the reasons he was credited for being the first to invent the electric light bulb, when in reality he was number 23. Another word for system is network. That is why the richest people on earth control networks such as television networks, radio networks, gasoline networks, network marketing networks, and distribution networks. A big difference between a small business owner and a big business owner is the comprehension of the importance of a system or a network. If an entrepreneur designs a business and forgets one of the 5 elements, the business suffers or even fails. The business succeeds or fails before there is a business. That is why it is important to do your homework, even if it means working for free. Rich Dad's Entrepreneurial Lesson number 4. Success reveals your failures. Street smarts versus school smarts. Sometimes we win the most when we have nothing to lose. He also said, the hard part for most people is getting to nothing. Most people would rather hang on to a little than let go and get to nothing. You're in the middle of a learning process. The process requires that you make many mistakes and learn from those mistakes. The faster you make mistakes, the faster you get through the process and get to the other side. Before I left the corporate business school, I had no idea how much running a business cost. For 2 years, in order to reduce expenses, my 2 partners and I did not take salaries. Once again, I was working for free. I knew then why Rich Dad had insisted that his son and I work for him for free. He was preparing us for the world of entrepreneurship, a world where everyone else gets paid first and you get paid last, if you get paid at all. After building and rebuilding my nylon wallet business several times and building and rebuilding other businesses, analyzing businesses became easier and easier. Today, instead of fear, there is excitement. Today, instead of great risks, I see great opportunities. Today, I know that if I lost everything, I could rebuild it. An entrepreneur needs to know the difference between school smarts and street smarts. More important, an entrepreneur needs to have team smarts, which means finding the best combination of people required by the task at hand. To ultimately win in business, it is team smarts that wins. Some self-employed people do not do as well as they could because they feel they have to be experts at all 5 levels. They are often smart and good at all 5 levels, but they may not be strong at all levels. This may be why they often stay in the S quadrant. If you want to be a success in the B quadrant, you need to be the best at one of the levels and then build a team of experts around you that fill in the rest of the levels. Before quitting your job, know that your most important job is to develop yourself. If you will dedicate yourself to becoming a great entrepreneur, you will find it easier to find great people to be members of your team. If you can put together a great team, you will find it easier to be successful wherever you are. Just remember, it is very important to strive to be as smart as you can be, both in street smarts and in school smarts. Rich Dad's Entrepreneurial Lesson number 5. The process is more important than the goal. Money talks. Most people will never know what it feels like to build an international business and be an international success. Most people will never know what it feels like to have money pouring in the door. Most people dash from home to work seeking security from this world. For many, work and home are where they hide from the harsh realities of a competitive world. All they want is a steady paycheck and a place to call home away from home. Rich Dad again paused and then said, "Others seek something else." "You mean something more than just security and money?" I asked. With a wistful look in his eye, Rich Dad said, "Yes. If all I wanted was a secure job, a steady paycheck, and a home away from home, I would never have become an entrepreneur." Most of us have heard that it is important to set goals, yet Rich Dad had a different take on goals. He said, "Goals are important, but the process of obtaining the goal is far more important than the goal." The reason the process is more important than the goal is that the process determines who you become in attaining your goals. You can become rich by becoming a smart entrepreneur. To become a rich entrepreneur, you need to become a smart entrepreneur. The reason I like this process of becoming rich is that the process requires you to become smart, and becoming smart is much more important than making money. If you lose your money, this process will teach you how to get it back and become even smarter in the process. Lottery prizes are often in the millions of dollars simply because there are millions of people who want to become rich by being lucky. I find it interesting that this process of getting rich is not only the riskiest of all methods with the worst odds of winning, but it is a process that does not increase your financial intelligence at all. In fact, winning the lottery often reveals how low a person's financial intelligence really is. I often ask myself, if I lost it all, how much would I recover in 5 years? If my past is any indicator, each time I hit zero, and I did hit zero a number of times, I came roaring back, making much more money than I lost. I've not made $1 billion as Henry Ford did, but my businesses have had income in the hundreds of millions of dollars. In my opinion, the entrepreneur's process is the best process to get rich because it is also an educational process to achieving great wealth, if you have the heart, mind, and stamina for it. Most wannabe entrepreneurs focus on the product level, the top level of the BI triangle. While product is important, looking at the BI triangle, you notice that cash flow is the base level with the most area allocated to it. For successful business people and investors, the numbers are very important. The money you spend for an accountant will be priceless in your educational development as an entrepreneur. If you ask most accountants, I'm certain they will tell you that most entrepreneurs lack knowledge of accounting laws and practices and are horrible at record keeping. Their lack of accuracy with numbers may eventually get them in trouble. It is this lack of knowledge that eventually costs them even more money. In other words, pay them a little early rather than pay a lot more later. Before quitting your job to start your business, I recommend that you sit down with an experienced accountant and go over a budget on what it may cost to start and operate your business. If the numbers shock you, simply take a deep breath and sleep on it for a night or two. Give yourself time to expand your mind around the costs. The cost of starting, building, or growing a business is often more than originally imagined. Even if the business does not take shape, the process of thinking through the creation of a business, putting it down on paper and matching it with numbers that tell the same story is an excellent educational process and reality check. It begins to balance school smarts and street smarts. One reason why the legal level lies just below the product level of the BI triangle is that the entrepreneur's ideas are often the company's most important assets. The attorney's job is to protect the company, its products, and its intellectual property before there is a product or a business. What Rich Dad wanted to pound into our heads was that the world was filled with mega million-dollar opportunities. The problem is that there are more mega million-dollar opportunities than there are mega million-dollar entrepreneurs. That is why the cash flow level of the BI triangle is so important. It tells the story not of the opportunity but of the entrepreneur. This is especially true in the creation phase of the business, when the business is not yet a business. This is one of Rich Dad's most important lessons. He said, "The reason so many people are poor is that they are poor spenders." In other words, there are good expenses and bad expenses. He also said, "The rich are rich because they have expenses that make them rich. The poor are poor because they have expenses that make them poor." Regarding the subject of entrepreneurship, he said, "Most people are not good entrepreneurs because they are savers rather than smart spenders." One of the reasons people on the E and S side of the quadrant have a tough time as entrepreneurs is simply that they know how to work for money, but they do not know how to spend money and then have the money come back with more money. Owning a business means your activities show up directly on the bottom line as money made and money lost. Rich Dad would say, "An employee can be paid for being busy, an entrepreneur is paid for results." The results are often known as the bottom line. That is why the cash flow level is the base of the BI triangle. There is an overused statement that goes, "Money talks and bullshit walks." Where money talks the loudest is on the bottom line of a financial statement. As an entrepreneur, you do not have to be an accountant, but you do need to be accountable. Rich Dad's entrepreneurial lesson number 6. The best answers are found in your heart, not in your head. The 3 kinds of money. "What did you learn at Vietnam?" asked Rich Dad. "I learned the importance of mission, leadership, and the team," I replied. "Which was the most important?" "The mission." "Good." Rich Dad smiled. "You'll make a good entrepreneur." There are 3 kinds of income. 1. Ordinary income. 2. Portfolio income. And 3. Passive income. My poor dad worked for ordinary income, the highest taxed income there is. My rich dad worked primarily for passive income, the lowest taxed income. To explain competitive money, he said, "We learn to compete early in life. We compete in school for grades, we compete in sports, and we compete for the person we love. At work, we learn to compete for jobs, for raises, for promotions, for recognition, and for survival. In business, companies compete for customers, market share, contracts, and good employees. To explain cooperative money, he said, in sports and in business, cooperation is known as teamwork. The richest, most powerful entrepreneurs have built the biggest businesses in the world via cooperation. They become more competitive due to the cooperation of their team. Most entrepreneurs of large businesses are great team leaders. Spiritual money is created by doing God's work, work that God wants done. It's work being done in response to a higher calling. Spiritual money is not about money? If it is not about money, then what it is about, I asked. It's about doing a job that not because you want to do it, but because it must be done, and you know deep down in your soul you're the one that is supposed to do it. How do you know you're supposed to do it, I asked. Because it disturbs you that no one else is doing it. You may say to yourself, why isn't someone doing something about this? Could it anger you? I asked. Oh yes, said Rich Dad softly. It can also sadden you or even break your heart. It may seem like an injustice or a crime to you. It probably disturbs your sense of decency. It seems unfair, an injustice. If they were truly committed to solving the problem, I would say that the invisible forces of this universe, of God, might come to their support. Magic might happen in their lives. This is when spiritual money comes into play. But it's more than money. People you never met before come to join forces with you, not for the money, but for the mission. Why do they join you? I asked. Because they are on the same mission. The world is filled with gifted people who never develop their gift. Finding one's gift can be hard work, and then developing one's gift can be even harder work. And that is why so many people appear to be below average. The opening line of Good to Great says it all. Collins begins by stating, good is the enemy of great. Keeping with the subject of finding one's gift, we all know the world is filled with good business people, good athletes, good parents, good workers, and good governments. But the world has a shortage of great business people, great athletes, great parents, great workers, great governments, and so on. Why? Because for many of us, good is good enough. If my rich dad were here today, he would say, bringing out your gift is about bringing out your greatness, not just what you are good enough at. Greatness is a choice. It is not about being gifted or talented or more fortunate than others. It's about a choice we all can make. The amateur plays for fun. The professional plays for keeps. To the amateur, the game is his avocation. To the pro, it's his vocation. The amateur plays part-time, the professional full-time. The amateur is a weekend warrior. The professional is there 7 days a week. The word amateur comes from the Latin root meaning to love. The conventional interpretation is that the amateur pursues his calling out of love, while the pro does it for money. Not the way I see it. In my view, the amateur does not love the game enough. If he did, he would not pursue it as a sideline distinct from his real vocation. The professional loves it so much he dedicates his life to it. He commits full time. Very often I hear people say, I'm doing what I love. Also I hear people say, do what you love and the money will follow. Well, this is good advice. There are also some flaws in the advice. The most obvious flaw is the use of the word I. One's true mission is about whom you love. It is not about you. A mission is about whom you do your work for. It's not about working for yourself. I too hate to read, hate to study, hate to train, hate to pay for advice, hate the long hours without pay, but I do it. Why? She asked. Because I don't do it for me. My work is not about me. It's about them. So you study because you want to do better for them, your customers? Yes, I replied. Not just my customers. I study, train, and practice hard for their families, for their community, and for a better world. It's not about me or about the money. It's about being of service. The problem is you must first qualify to serve. Qualify? What do you mean by qualify? Well, medical doctors spend years in medical school qualifying to serve their patients. I do not know of anyone who has quit a job as an office manager and the next day is in the operating room performing eye surgery. Most people are happy just to be good because being good is all they need to serve themselves. It's not a matter of the size of the business, it's a matter of the size of the mission. I sincerely believe the worldwide success of the Rich Dad Company is not due to Kim and me as individuals, but as people dedicated to our missions in life. When we founded the Rich Dad Company, we did not need to work. It was not about needing a job. It was not about needing money. It was about answering a higher calling. It was about doing a job that needed to be done. Before you quit your job, remember that your mission starts at your core, in your soul, felt in your heart and spoken through your actions, not just your words. Rich Dad's Entrepreneurial Lesson number 7. The scope of the mission determines the product. How to go from small business to big business. As you may already know, I do not like the traditional system of education. I didn't like being taught by the fear of failing, learning to memorize all the right answers and being afraid of making mistakes. In school, I always felt I was being programmed to do only the right things and to live in fear of living life. In school, I often felt like a butterfly caught in a spider's web, with a spider wrapping its web around and around me until I could no longer fly. The kind of education I was looking for was an education that taught people how to break through their fears, education that would help them discover their own power within. I learned about Ilya Prigozhin, a person who was awarded the Nobel Prize for his research on dissipative structures. To put it into as simple an example as possible, his research proved why a child will climb on a bike, fall off, climb on, fall off, and then suddenly be able to ride. Again, in the simplest of terms, under the extreme stress of falling down and getting up again and again, the stress of the process causes the child's brain to reorder. The brain goes from not knowing how to ride a bicycle to being able to ride a bicycle forever. To me, his research verified why people who do well in school may not do well in the real world. There are many people who know what to do, but cannot do what they know. Like my dad, once they fall down, they stay down and say, "I'll never do that again." Instead of pressing on with increasing stress and frustration, they back off to reduce the stress. In many ways, it is like the chick remaining in its protective shell. As Prigozhin summarized, stress is the way intelligence grows. Or as Rich Dad would say, stay with the process. In his book, Good to Great, Jim Collins does a whole piece on knowing when to stop. Reading his book in 2004 took me back to the times when I also stopped in 1984 and 1994. There was no clear signal, no sign from God saying, it's time to stop. Each time there was simply a moment when I knew the process I was in had come to an end. It was time to stop and wait for the beginning of the next process. According to Jim Collins, a person may need to stop first, take some time off, and then look for the next thing. That is what I did. I simply stopped, let the dust settle, and waited a few years to see what would happen next. Exhaustion is what often occurs with successful people in the S quadrant. Since an S individual often does the work himself, more success means more work. An S often works for a $1 per hour compensation plan, and as we all know, there are only so many hours in a day. Dr. Buckminster Fuller, the teacher who has had a tremendous influence on my life, often said, "The more people you serve, the more effective you become." He was not into money, but he was into being of service. Rich Dad said, "One of the big differences between an S and a B is the number of customers they can handle." He also said, "If you want to be rich, simply serve more people." When I took what I had learned from Rich Dad and created the board game and wrote the book, I was going through the eye of the needle. I was getting myself out of the equation. Before you quit your job, you may want to remember the lesson of this chapter. The lesson is that the scope of the mission determines the product. It is very tough making a lot of money or serving a lot of people simply by working harder physically. If you want to serve a lot of people and or make a lot of money, you may need to get yourself out of the way and pass through the eye of the needle. Rich Dad's Entrepreneurial Lesson number 8. Design a business that can do something that no other business can do. What is the job of a business leader? Clearly define the mission, goals, and vision of the company. Find the best people and forge them into a team. Strengthen the company on the inside. Expand the company on the outside. Improve the bottom line. Invest in research and development. Invest in tangible assets. Be a good corporate citizen. A leader's job is to change the company to allow it to grow and serve more people. If the leader cannot change the company, the leader keeps the company small and the company may begin to shrink. There are many ways a business can expand. 1. Replicate the entire BI triangle. Basically, once you work the bugs out of the first business, you open more of them. Many retailers and restaurants expand this way. In many cities, there are restaurants that have 3 or 4 successful stores located throughout the city. In order to grow bigger, the leader may need to change leaders. Often the owner will sell to a bigger company and start over again. 2. Franchise. McDonald's is the most famous example of expansion via franchising. 3. Take the company public through an IPO. With funds from places like Wall Street, the company can tap into a virtually unlimited supply of money as long as the company keeps on expanding. 4. License the product. This is the way we designed the Rich Dad company to expand. Licensing is basically allowing another business to produce your products. As our success grew, our licensing, which is the legal level of the business, expanded to 42 different languages in over 55 countries. It costs us no money to produce or store the books. We do not need a giant warehouse, an extensive sales force, or a large inventory to ship our products around the world. My training as a military officer required that we know the difference between a tactic and a strategy. In very simple terms, a tactic is what you do. A strategy is the plan on how to get the tactic done. One of my military science instructors was adamant about the importance of using a single tactic, multiple strategy plan of warfare to win. He would say, military leader must focus on one objective or tactic. He must only want to do one thing. Everything else is a strategy on how to get that one tactic done. If you have read Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, you will notice that many of the great companies have single tactics. Jim Collins does not call it a single tactic, multiple strategy way of winning. Instead, he calls it the hedgehog principle. In his book, he uses Walmart's single tactic, the lowest price for good products, as the reason it beats its competitors who have multiple tactics and even more strategies. In other words, Walmart's competitors simply have not clearly defined their own single winning tactic. Walmart's entire business is focused on one promise, a promise customers clearly like. That means Walmart does not win in the product category. Like Domino's, it wins in the system level of the BI triangle. You may recall that Thomas Edison won the electric light battle at the system level, not at the product level. Henry Ford also won at the system level. He simply mass-produced low-priced cars for the working family. He never promised the best-made cars. He just promised the best-priced cars, and then designed a business around his promise. McDonald's does not produce the best hamburger. Ray Kroc built a business around the idea of selling the best franchise to people who want to own a franchise. Always have a low-risk idea or strategy to fall back on. Rich Dad taught me that whenever you start a business or invest in something, you need to have a low-risk idea. For example, when investing in real estate, if the investment paid me something each and every month, that was a low-risk investment. Simply put, a low-risk idea is something you know you can do. Design a business that can do something that no other business can do. Simply put, focus all your efforts on your core strength, your unique product. Today, instead of just a glimpse of the world I want to live in, Kim and I live in a world better than we ever dreamed of. It seems like magic, and it is magic. The money and lifestyle are great, but it is the sense of making a difference in so many lives that is the true magic. When I think back on my dad sitting unemployed in front of the TV set, the kids in the sweatshops in Asia from my wallet business, and then to the families playing Cashflow on the Yangtze River, that is the real magic. As Dr. Buckminster Fuller would say, it's the work of the Great Spirit. Rich Dad's Entrepreneurial Lesson number 9. Don't fight for the bargain basement. How to find good customers. You will always have good customers and bad customers. Fortunately, I have found about 80% of all customers are good customers. 5% are like him, just horrible. And the other 15% are in between. You fire customers? I asked in surprise. Absolutely, said Rich Dad. You fire bad customers just as you would fire a bad employee. If you do not get rid of your bad employees, the good employees will leave. If I do not fire bad customers, not only will my good customers leave, but many of my good employees will leave as well. The same is true with advisors. You must be able to fire bad advisors. If you have accountants or attorneys who do a poor job, or if the job is too big for them, or if they are only interested in receiving their fees and not helping your business will suffer. If you do not get rid of bad advisors, you are responsible. The ultimate price of bad advice is far more than what you pay your advisors in fees for good advice. As an entrepreneur, you must realize that you are responsible for your own mistakes as well as for the mistakes of others. Your success or failure as an entrepreneur depends a lot on your people skills. If you have strong people skills, your business will grow. If you have poor people skills, your business will suffer. If you hire people simply because you like them or because they are relatives, and you cannot fire them when they need to go, then you have poor people skills. In most cases, a business does not need a competitor. A normal business has so many competitors inside the business, it's amazing that anyone gets any work done at all. So that is why an entrepreneur needs to know when to fire someone. If one person upsets the balance, the whole business can boil over because the internal friction gets too great. One of the reasons so many people are self-employed or own businesses that stay small is that the leader is either not competent with dealing with people or simply does not want to learn to deal with so many different people. It takes courage and excellent communication skills to be successful in business. In many instances, it is not about what you say, but how you say it. So if the communication is going to be unpleasant, put on your creative thinking cap and figure out the most humane and kind way to say what needs to be said. And always remember that communication does not mean talking. Communication also includes listening. When two people are upset and both are talking, friction increases and communication decreases. In overly simple terms, margin is the difference between what it costs to produce your product and the price you sell your product for. For example, let's say it costs you $2 to manufacture your widget, and you sell your widget for $10. In this case, your gross margin is $8. Margin pays for the team's salaries, legal fees, the company's system operations, marketing, and accounting. These are also known as operating expenses. Product and price determine your customer. To help clarify this, let's look at the automobile industry. A Rolls-Royce is known as a very expensive car. it attracts a certain type of customer. If Rolls-Royce suddenly announced it was going to produce a low-price budget model, many of their rich customers would probably start looking for another brand of car. If the high-end brand wants to produce a low-end brand, they had best create another brand for a different distribution channel, let's say Walmart. In fact, that is what many big companies do. They produce the same product but under different brands representing different price points for different customers. So to find good customers, you need to match the product and the price to fit the customer's needs, wants, and ego. In many cases, the customer's ego is far more important than wants and needs. At a marketing seminar, I learned a guideline known as the 5 Ps. These are the 5 things a marketer must know when selling a product. I believe they were identified by E. Jerome McCarthy. They are product, person, price, place, position. A marketer must know what the product is, the person who wants the product, what price they are willing to pay, where the product will be placed so the customer can find it, and how to position it in the marketplace. That is, the biggest, the smallest, the first, the last, and so on. Ad agencies are generally for big corporations or established businesses. In a small startup business, the entrepreneur needs to be the best they can be at sales and marketing. With limited resources, every dollar spent must result in sales, because sales equal income. There are 3 price points for any product: the lowest price, the highest price, and the middle price. The worst price is to be the middle price. Nobody knows who you are. The trouble with being the lowest price product is that someone is always trying to beat you. Someone will find a way to sell the same product for less than you do. To win the lowest price competition, you have to make less and less money. On top of that, you have to deal with cheap customers. The instructor roared on about why being the most expensive was the best position to fight for. He said, "When I was a struggling marketing consultant, I tried to keep my prices low. The problem was the lower I made my prices, the cheaper my customers became. Soon, instead of selling my services, I was spending more time haggling about my fees with cheap customers. When I raised my fees a little, I joined the masses of other middle-of-the-road marketing consultants. Again, most of my time was spent discussing price rather than the value of my product, what I could do for the customer. Then one day I decided to be ridiculous and simply raise my fees to the highest in my industry. Instead of charging $50 an hour for my services, I raised my rates to $25,000 per day. Today, I work less, earn far more money, and work with a better class of client." My mind raced when I heard his fee of $25,000 per day. I realized that I was the cheap client he did not want. Once I got over the shock of realizing I was the cheap one, I began to see that it was my own cheapness that was causing me to struggle at pricing my board game. I was looking at price rather than the value of the game. "Don't fight for the bargain basement," boomed the instructor. "The bargain basement attracts cheap customers." Design your product and its price for a very special customer. Your marketing should then find ways of reaching that special customer. Be creative. Don't be cheap. The bargain basement is not a place to find good customers. The lowest price leaders do not just lower their price. The winners in the lowest price category do something brilliant in their business that their competitors cannot do. If you are going to be the highest price product in the market niche, then you have to give your customers something your competitors cannot give. Don't try to be all things to all customers. If you want the high end and the low end, start 2 brands. Marketing needs to fill a customer's wants, needs, and ego. In many cases, ego has more buying power. Many businesses fall into this trap. When sales are down, they look for new products, which often leads to a phenomenon known as line extension. When line extension happens too much, the customer can become confused because there are too many products to choose from, and your own products can become your competitors. Look for strategic partners who already sell to the customer you want to sell to. Earlier in this book, I wrote about the 3 kinds of money: competitive, cooperative, and spiritual. One of the ways to become richer faster with less risk is to be cooperative and earn cooperative money. Treat your best customers well. The internet makes keeping in touch with your best customers easier than ever. The rule of thumb is, focus on keeping your best customers happy, because not only will they buy more from you, but they will also tell their friends about you. That is the best kind of marketing of all. It's called word of mouth. When it comes to taking care of your best customers, be creative. The only position you want to be in is in first position. Always remember that most of us know that Lindbergh was the first human to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic. Very few people know who was second. If you are not first in your category, then invent a new category that you can be first in. Rich Dad's Entrepreneurial Lesson number 10. Know when to quit. The summary. The fact that you don't like your job is not a good reason to become an entrepreneur. It may sound like a good reason, but it is not a strong enough reason. It definitely lacks a strong enough mission. Although almost everyone can become an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. There's an old saying that goes, winners never quit and quitters never win. Personally, I do not agree with that saying. It is too simple. In my reality, a winner also knows when to quit. Sometimes in life, it is best to cut your losses. It is best to admit you have come to a dead end, or to admit you have been barking up the wrong tree. In my opinion, a quitter is someone who quits simply because things have gotten tough. Attitude is almost everything. We don't recommend becoming an entrepreneur just to make money. There are far easier ways to make money. If you do not love business and the challenges a business offers, then entrepreneurship may not be for you. In earlier books, we advise people to work to learn, not to work to earn. Instead of taking jobs for the money, take jobs for the experience. For example, if you want to gain experience in how business systems work, get a part-time job at McDonald's. All entrepreneurs need to be good in sales. If you are not good in sales, get as much experience as possible before you quit your job. I heard Donald Trump once say, "Some people are born salespeople. The rest of us can learn to sell." I'm not a natural salesperson. I did train hard to become one. If you want really great sales training, you may want to consider joining a network marketing business or a direct sales business. An entrepreneur needs to know how to spend money and have more money come back. It's not about being cheap, tight, or frugal. It's about knowing when to spend, what to spend on, and how much to spend. I have seen too many entrepreneurs go broke saving money. For example, when business drops off, instead of spending money on more promotions, some entrepreneurs cut back, hoping to save money. When this happens, business continues to drop off. This is an example of the wrong action at the wrong time. Start a business to practice on. No one can learn to ride a bicycle without a bicycle, and no one can learn to start, build, and run a business without a business. Once you are familiar with the different parts of the BI triangle, stop planning and start doing. As I've always said, keep your full-time job and start a part-time business. Be willing to ask for help. Rich Dad often said, "Arrogance is the cause of ignorance." If you don't know something, ask someone who does know. Over the years, I have heard many people use the term BHAG, which stands for Big Hairy Audacious Goal. While having a big hairy goal is commendable, I believe the process and the size of the mission are more important than the goal. Rich Dad drew a diagram for his son and me that looked like this. He said, "If you are going to have a big goal, you need a strong mission to push through the process. With a strong mission, anything is attainable."